I really am so excited to be with you guys all week long. And I do have to tell you, if I get a chance to sit down with you or talk to you face to face this week, and I hope to do that with some of you, you should probably prepare yourself because I might ask you a question. And if I ask you this question, it is because I sincerely want to know. Now, the question I might ask you is not a new question, nor is it particularly surprising for a place like this. Here's what I want to know. What do you believe? I confess my own conviction that this is an underappreciated and therefore underasked question. What we actually believe matters, and we all believe many things. You do, and I do too. Not everything we believe is of the same importance. I mean, we get this, right? Like, I believe that Harry Potter is one of the greatest stories ever told. You won't convince me otherwise. Some of you agree. That's wonderful. Not all of you, though. And if you, don't agree, that's okay. We can still be friends. It's all good. I ain't mad at you, you know. I believe that drinking tea is actually underrated, but drinking coffee is still far superior. You know, can I get an amen? Yeah. And not all of you agree, you know. And if you disagree like that, I don't know, actually, on this one, you might have to answer to Jesus. So I'll leave that to the two of you. But you get it. Like, some of the things that we believe, they just don't matter a whole lot. Other things that we believe are a little bit weightier. I believe that none of us is here by accident. I believe that art is magic and music is power and love is a miracle. I believe that God is real and good and three in one, Father, Son, and Spirit. I believe in sin, mine most of all. I believe that being together is powerful and that words do things. I do not believe that we can change the past or jump ahead to the future. And so I believe that what matters in this moment is that we discern God's will for this moment. I believe that life is good, but terrible, and that death is terrible, but temporary. I believe that everything can be redeemed. I believe that some of you will unfortunately stop paying attention this week before the word you need to hear is spoken. I believe that what we always need most is a clear vision of Jesus. We can slow down now because this is where I want to camp out for a little bit. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot I don't know about you. And even though I hope to get to know some of you this week, there's still going to be a lot about most of you that I don't know. I don't know most of your names. I don't know where you're from. I don't know what your family situation is like. Maybe you live with your mom, or maybe you live with your dad, or maybe you live with both, or maybe you live with neither. Maybe it's awesome. Maybe it's terrible. Maybe it's somewhere in between. I don't know if you have siblings, or if you do, how many, or whether they're older or younger, or brothers or sisters. I don't know if you get along with them, or if you can't stand them, or if you pick on them, or if they pick on you, if you're best friends. I have no idea. I don't know what kind of house you live in. Is it big or small? I don't know what street you live on. Is it safe or dangerous? I don't know what kind of school you go to, or where you work, if you work, or what kind of work you want to do in the future. There are so many things I acknowledge I do not know about you. But I am confident that no matter what is going on in or around you, what you need more than anything else is for the image of Jesus that you have in your mind and in your heart to correspond as closely as possible to the reality of who he is. What we always need most is a clear vision of Jesus. I don't know if you agree. Some of you do. Probably some of you don't. Of those who do, sadly, some will change your mind. Of those who don't, thank God, some of you will change your mind. John agrees. The Apostle John, that is. Although, I suppose he's not the only one. Anybody named John in the room? Any Johns in here? Yeah? I see some hands. There's like 30 of you. Yeah, all right. I'm not going to put you guys on the spot, but maybe all of you agree. Anyway, this John, the Apostle John, the one who wrote the gospel, he not only agrees, he actually cares about nothing more than to show you this is true. That's why he wrote a gospel, a story of the life of Jesus. And that's why he ends the gospel the way he does. You guys had it read to you earlier. John chapter 20, later on in the book, he says, I'm writing these things to you so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, and that by believing in him, you may have life in his name. He wants you to see Jesus clearly. That's how he ends his gospel. What I want to do with you tonight is just take a few minutes and see how he begins. So if you would, open up your Bibles and turn to John 1:1. We're going to read a little bit more of this, similar verses you just read, but actually in a little bit of a different translation. Now, and while you're turning there, let me just say, for some of you, I totally get that this is a foreign book to you. Like, the Bible is not a book you grew up with. You're not even sure what the heck to do with it. And then somebody like me stands up here and says, everybody turn to John 1:1. And they all start opening like robots. And you're like, what are you doing, you know? So just quick crash course. First of all, there's no shame or embarrassment in not knowing how the Bible works. Literally everybody starts somewhere. And it's a weird book. It's not just big, but it's like different because it's made up of all these miniature books, 66 of them actually. And so there's these multiple books that actually tell, by God's design, one continuous story. And the first 2/3 of the book's called the Old Testament. It's God preparing his people in the world for the sending of Jesus. And then the last third is called the New Testament. It's about God sending Jesus and then how to respond to that. And again, it's separated into these books. And we call them by their various names, and then their chapters and verses. And so when somebody like me says, turn to John 1:1, if you don't know what to do, you can just turn to the table of contents in the very front, find John or the Gospel of John, and then turn to that page number, and then you could use the numbers to locate where we're at. Now, if you don't know the Bible, I'm not going to make you do that right now. We're going to put it up on the screen for those who don't have one or are new to this. I do want to read it together with you. So again, remember, before we read this, remember, if you're going to write a book, some of you guys are going to write a book someday. That's going to be wild. If you're going to write a book, you have to remember, you only get one shot at starting well. One shot. So let's look at, with that in mind, at John's opening words. Here's what he says. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Jump ahead to verse 9. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Whew. Anybody else get lost in there? Like, John's famous for being easy to understand, but that is one heck of a way to start a book. Like, that's a lot. John loves loaded words. Word and light and dwelling and glory and grace and truth. Now, he's talking about Jesus the whole way through this thing. Jesus is the Word and life and light and grace and truth. And Jesus is a lot. Not like that person is a lot. Like, after you hang out with them, you need a nap and an ibuprofen. Not like that kind of a lot. I just mean there's a lot to know about him. And thankfully, we don't need to know everything to know enough for this moment. So let's lean in and stay focused. I think it might help if we break down what John is telling us about Jesus into groups of two, into pairs. We've actually seen one pair in how John ends his gospel. Remember, Jesus Christ, iota chi, first letters in Greek of Jesus Christos, the name Jesus Christ in the original language. Now, what you may not know is that these names actually mean something. They're not just like funky sounding words. The name Jesus in its own original language literally means the Lord saves. That's what it means. And the name Christ, or the title Christ, is God's anointed or God's anointed king. It's about the king that God anoints for a mission. In other words, if you just put together Jesus and Christ, you get the idea that he's the king God sent to save us. If you know nothing else about Jesus, that's a pretty darn good start. Jesus Christ, iota chi. So that's how John ends his gospel. But we're also going to look at how John begins. And again, we have a pair. Word and light. He ends with a pair of titles, but he begins with a pair of images. That's interesting. Word and light. Why these? Well, maybe because God wants to be known. Think about words. Words are how we help each other know things. I know it's kind of a weird example, but let's play it like this. You've talked about this before. Say I know the date of your death, like your death date. Some of you would want to know, some of you would not want to know. I'm just curious. How many of you would want to know if I knew the day you were going to die? And how many of you were like, no, I don't want to know? Yeah, it's probably 40-60. That's generally the split. So let's just play this out. Let's say I come up to you and I say, hey, I know your death date. Do you want to know? And you say to me, yes. And I say, okay, go ahead, know it. And then I just look at you, right? I just stare at you. And I'm like, no. Like, it's in there. Get it out of my brain. Go ahead. You'd be looking at me funny like, but I can't. That's not how it works. You have to tell me. You have to use words, to tell me my death date. Or how many of you were no? You're a no person on this, you don't want to know? If I come up to you and I'm like, hey, do you want to know your death date? And you're like, no, I don't want to know my death date. And then I just start telling you, oh, well, you will die on September 20. I'm just kidding. I'm not even going to finish. You be covering your ears. Like, no, I don't want to hear you. I don't want those words to come out because I don't want to know. It's a silly example, but you get my point. Words are how we help people know stuff. You know this if you've ever said the wrong word. I remember I was in Thailand back in, I'm about to date myself, 2002, which I realize is like before you guys were alive. Anyway, I was in Thailand in 2002, and I was over there for summer. I was in college, and I was training for ministry, and we were actually working there with a college there in northern Thailand with some other young guys who were training for ministry. So some guys from here went over there, and we couldn't speak their language, and so there was a lot of things we couldn't necessarily do together, but we could figure it out. Like we'd play soccer together, and we'd get destroyed, and those sorts of things. Well, they have this game over there called Takraw. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a really fun, amazing game. It's got a ball. It's like a wicker ball the size of one of those tiny kid basketballs. So picture a wicker ball about that big, and there's like a badminton net, probably about chest high, and you play it like volleyball, but you can't touch it. So you can use your shoulders, you can use your knees, your feet, those sorts of things. These guys were incredible. Like they're doing roundhouse back. They're spiking it. They're not tall people over there. You know what I'm saying? Like it was unreal. Anyway, they would embarrass us. But it was super fun. And one day we were actually at breakfast with the missionaries, and we were going to go play Takraw that day. And so we were like, hey, we'd like to compliment them in their own language. So, is what we're thinking, we had this plan. So at breakfast, we asked the missionaries, we said, what's the word for good? Like, would you tell us what this word is? And we didn't really explain it to them because they didn't need to know the situation. And they said, well, the word for good is aroi. So we're like, okay, mental note, aroi. Great, got it. And so we went and played Takraw later on, and sure enough, they destroyed us like normal, and we wanted to compliment them. And so after the game, we're like, you aroi. We know aroi. You aroi. Really going over the top, and they're just like looking at us, like backing up, I'm like, well, that didn't work. So later on that night, we're trying to figure out why, and we're talking to the missionaries, and we're telling the story, and they just start dying laughing. Like, why are you laughing? Like, you're the ones that told us this word. And they said, yeah, but you asked us that word at breakfast. So, like, we gave you the word, like, I guess it kind of means delicious. So we replay this in our minds. Like, we're like, you guys are delicious. We don't taste so good, We're a little tough and chewy, but you guys, And then they actually explained to us, this makes it even worse. They told us that some of these guys that grow up in villages in northern Thailand and the southern Laos, and in some of their villages, they actually have like centuries-old traditions of large white people coming and eating them. Not exactly the right word for what we wanted to communicate in that particular moment, Again, like words. Words are how we help people know stuff. Words are how we let others know us. Words are how I let you know me. You want to know my deepest secret or my greatest love or my most real fear? Ask me sometime. I'll tell you. Otherwise, without my words, you'll never know. Although, just be warned, I might ask you back. Words are how you let me know you. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus is the Word God speaks. The Word is how God lets us know Him, not just about Him, like know Him. And then there's light. New image, same idea. We use light language as a metaphor for knowledge all the time. Like, think about how you speak. You've said things like, do you see what I mean? Look at what I'm saying. How am I not being clear? Let me shed some light on this confusing issue. Why are you so blind to the truth? We talk like this. And nobody ever says to you, no, I don't see what you mean because your words are invisible. It's like that's a metaphor. To see is to know. But by contrast, I need in on the secret. Please don't leave me in the dark. It's scary to be left in the dark, both literally and metaphorically. What you can't see, what you don't know, that's some scary stuff. Who doesn't want to know? Who doesn't want to see? Darkness is ignorance, unawareness, inability to know. Light is knowledge and wisdom and truth. And what does this have to do with you? Everything. Sorry, that was a little intense. Everything. It has everything to do with you. Jesus came so that you could hear the word and see the light. And those are so much more than just churchy phrases. And Jesus came so that you can have a real relationship with God based on truth. Speaking of Jesus came, we're almost done. One more pair. It's kind of weird, but I don't want you to miss it. John actually wants you to know that Jesus was there in the very beginning, like from the start. He started his book with "in the beginning." Makes you think of page 1 of the Bible, right? If you've ever read page 1, you know that's how it starts. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But it's not just the first 3 words that connect John's gospel to the book of Genesis. The Bible's opening statement continues. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Did you see that? Did you hear it? In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." And there was. In the beginning was the Word, who is also the light. And this is Jesus. John wants you to know that Jesus has been around since long before this whole thing got started. There's never a time when Jesus was not. Like, I don't know how you imagine the beginning of existence, but Jesus doesn't have to imagine it. He was there then. He's out there. You can't put him in a box. That's what John wants you to know. But that's not all. He's also in here now. He didn't stay at a distance out there. He came. Verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. We're talking all week long about you stepping into what Jesus is doing. But tonight is about Jesus taking the first step toward you. Can I say that again? Your story, your spiritual story, it didn't begin when you took your first step toward Jesus. It began when Jesus took his first step toward you. And in that direction, he is still stepping. Out there, then he was. In here, now, he is. Y'all, I know this is a lot for night 1. This is some heavy stuff. But if the last 2 years taught us anything, they taught us to soak up what time we have together. So if you put all this together, you just might discover why you're here. Jesus is the King God sent to save you, the one who reveals who God is and how you might walk well in him. And Jesus isn't just somebody who made all this and then just sort of bounced. It's not somebody who's just out there watching how it all plays out. No, he's right here. And he's inviting you to listen. He's inviting you to see. Can I tell you one more secret? I hope you don't think this is arrogant, but there's something I know about you that you may not yet know about yourself. Jesus is what you want more than anything. I don't care if you don't know him or if right now you think you hate him. No. Everything you've ever wanted will point you toward him if you just look closely enough and open your eyes. Every bad thing you think you want is actually a corrupted version of a good thing that finds its source in him. And every good thing you want is a reflection of the goodness that subsists in his very being. Somebody once said, when a man enters a room with a prostitute, both of them are unconsciously looking for God. That is an odd thing to say. But what if it's true? You may think you want sex or money or fame or straight A's or inner peace or world peace or to make your parents proud, and you do. But what if, at the deepest heart level, what you want from these things can ultimately only be found in the one John calls Word and light? I know he wants you. And yeah, I think you want him too. I guess that makes me like a matchmaker or something. I believe this is why I'm here. And I believe He is why you're here too. What do you believe? What do you hear? What do you see? You know, most things in this world change, yet others remain the same from one age to the next, time on end. One thing that will never change is this: Jesus is for all. Jesus is forever.